Let's get right into it. Number 10. Tying essential knots. Most people secure loads by wrapping a rope a dozen times and finishing with a weird loop. That's not a knot, that's a prayer made of rope, a tangled mess that loosens under vibration and fails completely. You only need 3 essential knots. First is the square knot, used for everything from shoelaces to first aid. It securely joins 2 ropes of similar size. Tie it wrong, and you get a granny knot, which slips and fails under load. Second is the bowline. It creates a fixed loop at the end of a rope that won't slip, tighten, or jam. Sailors trust their lives to it because it cinches tighter under load, yet releases easily after bearing massive weight. Finally, the trucker's hitch acts as a built-in pulley system. Create a loop in the middle of the rope, run the end through it, and pull down. This creates a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage, tripling your pulling force to strap down heavy furniture so it doesn't move an inch. Knot knowledge was replaced by cheap zip ties and ratchet straps, but a bungee cord is just a giant rubber band, and ratchet straps rust, seize, or over-tighten. A low-stretch rope paired with a proper trucker's hitch is infinitely more reliable, adjustable, and field repairable. Number 9. Reading a physical map. If your phone died and you were handed a paper map, could you locate your position? Without that glowing blue dot, most people panic. Map reading is a lost skill, but it trains spatial reasoning, forcing your brain to connect a 2D representation to the 3D world. When GPS navigates for you, your hippocampus, the brain region responsible for cognitive maps, quietly switches off and can literally shrink from underuse. Relying on a satellite 12,000 miles away makes you profoundly vulnerable. GPS signals are fragile. They fail during solar storms, can be jammed by adversaries, and disappear during natural disasters or in simple dead zones like deep canyons and urban centers. The military still teaches physical land navigation because technology breaks. Learning to use a map means more than finding a street. It means orienting the map to your surroundings, turning it so north on paper matches north in reality. It means understanding contour lines to visualize hills and valleys that GPS shows as a flat line. Reading a map's scale bar turns abstract distance into physical reality, allowing you to accurately plan time and effort. It creates an internal compass that works anywhere, with 0 battery required. Number 8. Sharpening kitchen knives. Almost nobody owns a truly sharp knife. You probably have a blade that requires serious muscle just to mangle a tomato, but a dull knife is far more dangerous than a sharp one. It requires excessive downward force, making it prone to slipping off firm vegetable skins directly toward your fingers. Emergency rooms constantly treat hand injuries from dull blades. When you chop with a sharp knife, the steel does the work. With a dull knife, your shoulder does the work. A basic whetstone costs $10 and takes 20 minutes to learn. Soak the stone in water for 10 minutes. Hold the blade at a consistent 15 to 20 degree angle, about the thickness of a matchbook cover. Push the edge forward along the stone like you're shaving a thin slice off the top. After several strokes, feel for a burr on the opposite edge, a tiny wire of metal proving you've raised a new edge. Flip the knife and repeat to remove the burr and create a perfect apex. That metal honing rod in your knife block doesn't actually sharpen. It just realigns a microscopic edge that folded over. Hone every few uses, but use a whetstone every few months to grind a fresh, truly sharp edge. Number 7. Basic cleaning chemistry. Look under your sink. You probably have a dozen different sprays for glass, wood, tile, and countertops. That's not a cleaning collection. It's a monument to corporate marketing. Companies invent niche problems to sell you specialized 98% water solutions in disposable plastic bottles. In reality, vinegar and baking soda handle 90% of household cleaning. Vinegar is an acid that dissolves mineral buildup and cuts through grease. Baking soda is a mild, non-scratching abrasive that scrubs away grime. People mistakenly mix them, creating an impressive fizz, but that's just theatrical carbon dioxide. As an acid and a base, they neutralize each other, leaving you with useless, slightly salty water. The trick is using them in sequence. For a baked-on stovetop mess, make a paste of baking soda and water. Let it sit, scrub, and wipe away the grime. Afterward, a spray of diluted vinegar cuts any remaining film and dissolves mineral spots, leaving a perfect shine. This 2-step process is far more effective than mixing them. The lemon scent in commercial cleaners is just sensory marketing to make you feel sanitized. Understanding basic chemistry makes you a terrible customer for expensive, single-use sprays. Number 6. Legible handwriting. Most adults write like they're documenting a treasure map during an earthquake. The bar for competence is just basic, legible block letters, and most of us fail. When schools cut handwriting practice for keyboarding, we assumed it was obsolete. But physical handwriting still dictates reality in life-or-death environments like emergency triage, courtrooms, and legal wills. A heavily documented category of fatal medical errors is caused by illegible handwriting on patient charts. A pharmacist might misread Celebrex, an anti-inflammatory medication, as Celexa, an antidepressant, or mistake a dosage, with tragic consequences. Readable handwriting is a mechanical process, not an artistic gift. First, consciously slow down. Your brain moves faster than your hand, and rushing is the primary cause of illegibility. Second, lift the pen completely between words. Dragging it to go faster creates a tangled, hard-to-decipher mess. A tiny pause gives each word a clear perimeter. Third, focus on consistent size and spacing. Your regular handwriting must be clear enough for a paramedic to read in an emergency. Your signature can be a difficult-to-forge personal mark, but daily writing is for communication, where clarity must always trump speed. Number 5. Sewing a button. When a button falls off a shirt, most people see it as a fatal flaw, demoting the garment to the back of the closet or the trash. Fast fashion brands rely on this learned helplessness. Their business model is built on disposability. A shirt you discard over a loose button is a shirt they get to sell you again. Sewing a button takes 4 minutes, a needle, and thread. First, thread the needle, pull the ends even, and tie a knot at the bottom. This gives you a double reinforced strand far stronger than a single thread. Push the needle up through the fabric from behind, through one buttonhole, and down through the opposite hole. Repeat this 6 times to mirror factory strength. But here is the secret step everyone skips. Before tying it off, bring the needle up through the fabric, but not through the button. Wrap the thread tightly around the stitches underneath the button 4 or 5 times. This creates a shank, a small column of thread acting as a flexible hinge. Without a shank, the button sits flush and rigid, and the tight thread snaps the first time you move. The shank provides clearance for the fabric, drastically reducing strain and ensuring the repair lasts longer than the original. Number 4. Emergency radio communication. In 2003, a blackout left 50 million people across the Northeast without power. Cell towers died, the internet went dark, and for hours, nobody knew what was happening. The silence was total, except for the minority with analog radios. Radio waves don't require internet providers or cell towers, they just need the atmosphere. A basic NOAA weather radio broadcasts critical 24/7 updates during floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes. A hand crank version costs $30, often includes a flashlight and a USB port for trickle charging a phone, and never needs a wall outlet. The next level is amateur ham radio. Licensed operators use transceivers to both send and receive messages. They are often the first to report damage and coordinate responses when official grids collapse. These operators form volunteer networks that partner with FEMA and the Red Cross. They relay medical information from shelters to hospitals and report impassable roads, forming a resilient human-powered internet. To get a basic technician license in the US, you no longer need to learn Morse code. You just pass a multiple-choice exam. Relying solely on a smartphone for information guarantees you'll be cut off the moment the power grid fails. Number 3. Purifying drinking water. Finding and treating water is the single most critical survival skill. You have about 3 days without it before dehydration leads to organ damage and death. The average person's plan is to buy bottled water, but that fails the moment store shelves are bare. Drinking untreated water from a stream is a terrible gamble. It can be contaminated with microscopic parasites like Giardia, which cause violent illness, accelerating dehydration when you can least afford it. Boiling is the oldest and most reliable purification method. Bring water to a rolling boil, where large bubbles continuously break the surface for 1 full minute. At high elevations above 6,500 feet, water boils at a lower temperature, so you must boil it for 3 minutes. If you can't make a fire, sunlight is a slow but effective substitute. Fill a clear PET plastic bottle with clear water and leave it in direct sun for at least 6 hours. The UV radiation destroys most bacteria. As a last resort, unscented household bleach works. Add exactly 8 drops of standard 8.25% bleach per gallon of clear water. Stir and wait 30 minutes. The water should have a faint chlorine smell. If it doesn't, the dose was too low. Number 2. Basic fastening and joinery. Modern flat-pack furniture isn't built, it's assembled. Assembly is just following picture-based instructions. Building requires understanding physics. Assembly outsources the engineering to a factory. Building makes you the engineer. The first rule of building anything stable is squareness. If the corners of a bookshelf aren't a perfect 90 degrees, the structure will slowly rack and lean, eventually collapsing under its own weight. You can check for square with a simple 3-4-5 triangle rule. The second rule is accounting for wood movement. Solid wood acts like a sponge, expanding and shrinking across its grain with changes in humidity. If you screw a wide, solid wood tabletop directly to its base, the wood will tear itself apart or crack as it tries to move. This is why high-quality furniture uses clips or slotted holes. Flat-pack furniture uses small dowels and cheap cam locks that lack structural integrity. Move a particle board desk twice, and it starts wobbling. Real joinery, like the dovetails or mortise and tenon joints once taught in shop class, uses friction-fit techniques to lock corners together. In a well-made joint, the heavier the load, the tighter the connection becomes, creating a structure that lasts for centuries, not just until your next move. Number 1. Making a friction fire. The power grid goes out in a winter storm. Your house is getting cold, and your lighter is dead. Humans have generated fire for 1.7 million years. It's our oldest survival technology, providing heat, light, security, and a way to purify water. Yet almost no modern adult could start one from scratch. The bow drill is the most reliable friction method. You need a dry spindle, a fireboard, a handhold, and a bow made from a curved stick and a shoelace. The type of wood matters more than your technique. Wet or green wood will never ignite. You need a dead, dry softwood for the spindle and fireboard, like cedar or willow, because it has a lower ignition temperature. Carve a V-shaped notch in the edge of the fireboard, loop the bow's cord around the spindle, press the spindle into a small depression on the board, and saw the bow back and forth with long, smooth strokes. The friction grinds the wood into a dark, flammable powder that collects in the notch. With consistent downward pressure and speed, the powder will begin to smoke on its own, creating a tiny, glowing ember. This ember is fragile. You must carefully transfer it to a tinder bundle, a bird's nest of the finest, driest material you can find, like shredded bark, and gently blow it into flame. Summoning heat from cold wood is the ultimate antidote to modern helplessness. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.